Hi friends, welcome back to our Florida podcast. My name is Mae, and on Fridays, I talk about one of Florida's diverse wildlife or ecosystems.
And I'm her sister, I'm Kaylee, and on Mondays, we cover a historical figure or awesome historical location in the state of Florida. If you missed it, this week we were talking about Marjorie Harris Carr and how she helped stop a canal being put in across the entire state of Florida. Be sure to listen.
Perfect. Thanks so much, Kelly. So today's episode will take place in South Florida and Central Florida. Specifically, we're going to touch base a little bit on the Everglades. So the Everglades is home to over 360 bird species, including the Purple Gallinule, which is what we will be talking about today. And if any locals have heard of this bird, it's typically also known as the yellow-legged gallinule. So this bird belongs to the Rallidae family. If I'm pronouncing that wrong, absolutely go ahead and let me know.
Or don't.
This family of birds has about 144 species spread worldwide, and as a whole, this family of birds typically spends most of their time walking around in marshes or heavily vegetated habitats. Some of these birds in this family include Ridgway rail, Virginia rail, king rails, clapper rail, common gallinule, and the Purple Swamp Hen. Definitely remember the Purple Swamp Hen. We will go into a lot more detail about that bird.
I can definitely remember the name
later
Purple
on in the
Swamp
episode.
Hen.
Absolutely, it's a great name. It is a great name. Yeah, so essentially this bird is part of the rail family, if you could not gather. So most of the time, purple gallinules use freshwater, swamps, lakes, ponds, and marshes. These birds are native water birds typically residing in Central Florida. They will reside in South Florida, specifically in the Everglades. The purple gallinule is also found year-round in Central to South America and the West Indies.
Okay, so migrating here is them migrating north.
Exactly. The purple gallinule can be described as a medium-sized bird with long yellow legs. So when I was deciding what I would speak on about this week's episode, this bird ended up sticking out the most, as Kaylee mentioned in our episode from Monday. I don't love talking about birds. I don't necessarily always love birds. I was not the most thrilled to talk about birds, but this bird did stick out, and I was like, all right, I will definitely, if I'm going to talk about a bird this week, I will definitely talk about this one. So part of why I was so intrigued was because of how vibrantly colored these birds are. And they live in South Florida, and specifically they live in marsh areas, which I always found that kind of surprising. And so I started my research, and I was trying to describe, because obviously we're a podcast and, most of our listeners are just listening in. I wanted to find a way to describe this bird in my own words, to kind of paint the picture. But honestly, I ended up finding that I found the most color descriptive description from All About Birds. And so I am actually going to just read the description, which I find pretty funny. So they describe the colors of the purple gallinules as cherry red, sky blue, moss green, aquamarine, indigo, violet, and a school bus yellow.
I mean, it's accurate.
I found it pretty
And I think
funny.
the important thing to realize
it's extremely
is that it
accurate.
has all of those colors all at once. It's not like there's a purple variety and then a light blue variety.
There's no
all
variation.
Those
They're
colors
just
faded in, and that violet yellow is their legs, like the school bus yellow. Sorry, school bus yellow.
School bus yellow, not any other yellow. School bus.
Now
yellow.
that you say,
I loved it. I appreciated it.
Now that you say that they are from South Africa and the West Indies, that makes sense. I'm like, that looks like a rainforest bird more than it looks like a Florida bird to me.
Exactly. Yeah. So if you are watching this on YouTube, I will go ahead and include some pictures. They'll go ahead and pop up while I'm describing them, so you guys can go ahead and see this at the same time. Now, only the adults will go ahead and inherit these colors. The young do not inherit these bright, vibrant colors until adulthood. As juveniles, they will have darker brown bodies with a white tail feather.
Give them a chance to blend in. Well, they can't do anything.
Exactly. Basically, so they'll have that brownish tan color, and exactly, it lets them blend in with the marsh pretty well while they're growing up, and then they'll reach adulthood and get the very pretty, vibrant colors. So overall, these birds are described as secretive and typically shy. They are one of the only birds that can walk on water lilies. Many people will say that they are one of the... Hold on, sorry, I repeated myself unintentionally in combined sentences. All right. These birds are described as secretive and typically shy. They are one of the only birds that can walk on water lilies. Many people say it's because they're one of the only birds that can walk on water, and of course that's going to be basically due to their size. So these birds are a medium-sized rail measuring 26 to 37 centimeters, or about 10 to 15 inches in length, 50 to 61 centimeters, or 20 to 24 inches across the wings, and weighing about 5 to 10.8 ounces, or about 141 to 305 grams.
I'm hearing colorful water chicken.
Exactly, that's literally how it's described. It is a colorful water chicken with long legs.
I thought I was just being dumb.
Yeah, that can walk on water. So it's a colorful water chicken that can walk on water, essentially. So with their school bus yellow legs and small lightweight frame, they walk across almost all marsh plants and will grab onto plant stems to scoop down and dig for food. These marsh birds are omnivores and are considered ground foragers. They will eat seeds, fruits, insects, frogs, worms, and fish. They will pick up or flip over lily pads to grab any insects. And currently the purple gallinule doesn't face too many threats, but they do have predators like the American alligator, turtles, and bigger fish.
Turtles, huh?
I wasn't too surprised to see the alligator on there. I feel like it's pretty normal. I was surprised to see turtles that's a predator that they have.
Yeah, I wonder if it has to do with like the chicks being pretty small and they're just like, Although also snapping turtles and soft shells, they're huge. And it's not like they have to eat them all in one bite. They just got to get them and then... All right.
Also, I'm just like, how many times have these birds probably walked on top of an alligator, walked on top of the turtles? Like, so, they probably had it coming in some type of way.
Yeah, have you seen them in the wild at all?
I have not, mostly because I've never known, I've never really looked. I do know that they are very big in Central Florida, and that I really could probably, if I wanted to start like paying attention, I probably could see them relatively easily.
The only time I'd seen them was a year ago. We were down. Yeah.
You've seen one?
Yeah, so literally last year, probably like same week, we went down to like Palm Beach, just north of Miami, for Jared had some gigs, and then we had a day off, and we were going to go down to the Everglades, but it was like just too far, and instead we found like 3 different like preserves in that area that had a bunch of different boardwalks that you could walk, and basically you're like walking around these shallow ponds and on these boardwalks. And there's nothing but lilies, there's gators, there's lots of turtles, there's iguanas climbing and swimming. And then there were those birds. And I was like, I don't know if those are native birds. They're so bright. But now hearing you talk about like they're from South America, that like clicks and makes sense. And it's really interesting that they like migrate to Florida, because I feel like most things that migrate to Florida are coming from Canada. Actually, I don't even know if they migrate, but like it's interesting that that's where they are, because I had never seen them before. But I was definitely like, those things are bright.
That's funny that you say that you've seen one. I wonder, well, we'll find out maybe at the end. It was just
north of the Everglades, so.
Yeah, well, I mean, the thoughts went out the window. I don't think you saw a purple gallinule.
No? Really? Maybe I saw a different gallinule.
Yeah. And I'm going to touch base on that literally in like a minute or so.
It's a mystery. All right.
It is. So, just to go back to predators real quick here, we've got alligators, turtles, and bigger fish as their predators. But the biggest threat they continue to face is going to be the loss of their wetland habitat due to pesticides and development. Now, to kind of talk about possibly what I think Kaylee's actually talking about, the purple gallinule is typically confused with the purple swamp hen. These two birds share similarities in appearance, as well as reside in the same raildive family. Some of these features they share are similar in beak shape and size, but they also have very vibrant colors, and because of this, they typically are confused with the purple gallinule. So basically, there's about 2 differences that you can typically tell them apart by. And so one of the most significant differences to spot is their legs and feet, as they are a pinkish red color instead of the trademark school bus yellow color for the Purple Gallinule. Another easy way to tell these two birds apart is that the beak color of the Purple Gallinule is yellow at the very tip and then goes to an intense cherry red, whereas the Purple Swamp Hen has an all red orange beak. And again, if you are on YouTube here, I'm going to go ahead and post a picture that has them side by side so that you can go ahead and see the differences. Kaylee, do you happen to remember?
I don't,
for sure,
because as soon as I pulled up the Purple Swamp Hen, I was like, well, maybe, I don't know. I started questioning it. It was definitely something in the rail family because it had that type of head and those types of feathers and stuff.
Yeah, they have a very distinct head and beak and in general.
That's what I was like, I definitely saw something in that family. Definitely saw them walking across the lily pads. I'm going to have to go through my pictures and see if I can find pictures of any of them.
I hope you can. Definitely, if she finds a picture, we'll definitely go ahead and include it on our Instagram post so that you guys can go ahead and see it as well. But essentially, it's extremely important that these two birds are not going to be confused with each other. The Purple Swamp Hen is actually an invasive species to North America and specifically to South Florida.
So that's why my little suspicions about I don't know, they seem like they could be invasive.
Yeah, exactly. So the Purple Gallinule already kind of seems like it could be invasive. And then you've got the Purple Swamp Hen who looks super, super similar to the Purple Gallinule. And it turns out that the Purple Swamp Hen is the one that is the invasive species. So super fun. According to the University of Florida, many non-native birds have been introduced in Florida. They believe that around as many as 200 species and about 16 of those species are considered established. So meaning Florida is now facing threats to our native ecosystems because of those established species. So where the swamp hen is actually native to is going to be Southern Europe, the Mediterranean, and all of Africa across Asia, India, Australia, New Zealand, and the islands of the Western Pacific. So it's more like a where they get around here. Yeah, they get around. Yeah. So back in a little history about how these birds got to Florida. Back in 1992, Hurricane Andrew caused the accidental release of many non-native wildlife species in Florida, including the Purple Swamp Hen. They believe most of these birds escaped from bird keepers in the Pembroke Pines area. As a result of the hurricane, they also say that about 6 to 8 of these individuals have escaped from the Miami Metro Zoo at that time. So Purple Swamp Hens were first documented living in the wild in Florida in 1996, and then by 1999, the population in Pembroke Pines had grown to at least 134 birds, and then in the Everglades Water Conservation Area, they were first spotted in 2006.
Like less than 20 years.
Yeah, less than 20 years. At the time that University had written this report, this Purple Swamp Hen had only been spotted in South Florida, typically around stormwater retreatment areas just north of the Everglades, but they've also been found in smaller numbers in Belle Glade, Everglades National Park, and Big Cypress National Preserve, as well as Osceola, Brevard, and Lake counties in Central Florida. Unfortunately, as of right now, there is little information about the ecological impacts that Purple Swamp Hen will cause in Florida. They are known to be highly territorial and aggressive and will fight amongst themselves with other species over food. It's expected that in large numbers, these aggressive invaders will negatively impact our native birds and vegetation. The most considerable vegetation expected to be affected is going to be the spike rush plants. These plants play a significant role in our water system. This plant is a food source to waterfowl, fish, amphibians, reptiles, and even mammals, as well as they provide nesting sites and breeding grounds, not to mention water filtration and erosion control. I hope to, in a later episode, go over the spike rush plant in more detail and the important role in our ecosystem, as there's actually a couple plants that the Purple Swamp Hen lies on and will eat that will affect our ecosystem, and that I kind of want to touch back on a little bit later.
Yeah, and that spike rush plant looks like like basically like really hardy grass that's like growing in a cluster.
Exactly. Yeah, she beat
Kind of
me
looks
to
like
it.
straws.
I kind of describe them as needles.
Yeah.
Like they're very, very long. They're relatively, I would say, like they're durable. Birds can use them to like be on top of them. They have multiple
There you go.
purposes.
Yeah. It's funny that you mentioned that they're seen a lot in swamp or like floodwater retention plants and stuff like that, because that's exactly what we were walking around in. The area that we were in, yeah, it was like super, super developed. So it's like huge, fancy developments, concrete jungle, but like nice. And then you would be like, okay, there's this park. And then you'd pull into the parking lot, which was like along the side. And you get out and it like smells kind of funny. And then you realize it's a water treatment plant. And then you walk out on the boardwalk and it's like partitioned off ponds for like the extra storm water to run. And then you're like walking along boardwalks and you'd see gators and you see all the birds, and there were a ton of iguanas, which are also invasive. So it could very easily have been, I gotta find some pictures. Hopefully I took pictures of them because I was like, these guys are weird. But yeah, that's exactly the type of place that was. It's really cool that there are those places, that there are those parks that you can like walk around. And it's definitely interesting that you can definitely tell that like all of those birds and plants are very like definitely have to coexist. But it's also really sad that like you are concrete jungle and then there's like this one corner that's wetland still. And it's really like man-made wetland too. It's not even like this was always here. It's more like, well, we built all this, then we built this like what it should be. So
right. Yeah. So the purple swamp hen in their native country is typically known as a nuisance and a pest to farmers.
Nobody likes them.
Which is probably, no one likes them. That's probably why they started headed this way. So no one likes them and they've come here. We don't like them either. Basically, they are a pest to farmers. So if these birds continue to reside in Florida, they will start negatively affecting our farmers, specifically in South Florida, affecting our rice farming industry. To help put this in perspective, we produce about 20,000 to 25,000 acres of rice each year in the Everglades agricultural area. However, this is only about 1% of the rice that's in the United States.
Well, interesting. Okay. I had no idea that we had rice fields.
So I did not know either until I learned about Purple Swamp Hen.
It makes sense, but I just used to talk about South Florida. I think sugarcane mostly. And citrus, but sugarcane.
I guess, which I thought 20,000 to 25,000 acres of rice is a lot of rice, and it is not that much at all. But regardless, it would negatively impact lots of different aspects, not only just agriculturally, farmers, environment, if these birds come through and they start affecting this production.
Is the idea that they're eating the rice and then also getting territorial about it? Okay.
Exactly. And they're just very aggressive when they get territorial, especially in breeding. They're just very territorial and they're not wanted, and they're a mean bird.
We don't like mean birds.
A mean water chicken. Yeah. So to help prevent this bird from becoming an agricultural pest in South Florida, in 2006 to 2008, a program was implemented to remove this waterfowl. And around 3,187 of these swamp hens have been removed. However, this did not help reduce the population because in 2008, this program was stopped. And since then, these birds have spread to North Florida. So at the beginning of the episode, I say that we're just going to be talking about South Florida and Central Florida. And by the time that this program has been started and then was stopped, they actually have now spread to Northern Florida, and they can be seen all around in Florida, in your lakes, marsh, water area that has lots of just any of marsh habitat, plant life and such.
So was the hunting, exactly. I'm assuming they were hunting. Were they just trapping them and removing them, or hunting? Both? Okay.
Both.
So was it actually ineffective, or was it that like people complained and we don't want to do this, so therefore like the habitat just readjusted, even after 3,000 were there?
Basically, I think it was more so long. I don't know for sure. This is just more so kind of what I read and what I anticipate what it was. But it basically kind of seemed that like they didn't think it was too big of an issue. They didn't think there were so many, and then they realized that there were so many, and so the money, I guess, basically,
So
essentially, the money
expensive.
was
Gotcha.
missing. Expensive, and we can't really send them back because they're just gonna come back.
No, that makes sense. If like the state is
And they're
doing it,
considered a nuisance from where they are from. They're agricultural pests from in their own countries, and so now I imagine possibly if that program hadn't been stopped in 2008, I mean that's a couple crazy long ago, but when we were kids, maybe there's a chance that it would be far less, and maybe they would have spread to North Florida. But
well,
they are, and
I
it's
kind of
just one of
completely
those.
forgot that, like, obviously it's the state that's doing that, so those removal efforts are really expensive.
Yes.
No different than like hog removal's another big one, like Arkansas, Texas, Florida, Louisiana, like all those areas, like spend I don't even know, way too much money having to remove hogs. Yeah.
So much money.
So now you're talking about that with birds, and I mean, I was just thinking like, oh yeah, you just sell some hunting permits for it, but it's not like anyone's like, I want to get some purple swamp hen to eat. We need to rebrand them
and
as
also
the
not
swamp chicken.
If you are a native Floridian or a new resident to Florida and you see a purple swamp hen, or you believe you've seen a purple swamp hen, it is best to take a picture and report it to your local wildlife agency or conservation organization. You can send on that picture. Typically, there's an email. So you email that picture, and then they will go ahead and confirm if it is indeed the purple swamp hen and track the spread of its location. I didn't find too many resources of exactly what is done because, again, they don't have a program specifically going on right now about removing them, but you can actively still go ahead, email in those pictures, they'll identify for sure if it is the purple swamp hen or if you actually saw the purple gallinule, which is going to be native to Florida. In hopes of keeping track of the spread of its location, hopefully this will help our native plants and wildlife, as well as prevent any agricultural decline in the future. Currently, the native purple gallinule is not considered endangered and hopefully will continue to reside in Central and South Florida.
Gotcha. So it's not impossible that I saw it by any means. It's just more likely that it was a purple swamp hen because there's so many of them.
Yeah, it's definitely not impossible. Their numbers are not entirely they're not going extinct tomorrow by any means, but based on the area that you said you were in, it is most likely that you saw the purple swamp hen based on the area.
Gotta dig through my Google Drive and find some pictures.
I'm so curious. I hope you saw the purple gallinule. It'd be so cool.
I like how last week I surprised you with you're like, oh, I've been here. And this week I'm like, wait, I think I've seen that.
I know, it's good timing. I like it. Mind readers. Now, this is most of the information that I've learned about the purple swamp hen, and most of this has come from a report from the University of Florida, providing some information. Now, when I was reading through this, I did learn that the University of Florida used to do an issue kind of seasonally. They would do a fall, winter, basically episode, and they would actually write and talk about the invasive species that are in Florida, a little bit of how they got in here, and what to do if you saw those invasive species. I'm going to go ahead and include it in our links that we have on our Instagram and YouTube videos and posts, so that if you'd like to go ahead and see that, you can. Now, unfortunately, due to budget and to, money and resources, they have not done that since I believe it was 2017. But if you'd like to read some previous their issues about it, I went through and read several of them. I found them really interesting. I knew a little bit about some of the invasive species like the Cuban frog and the lizards that are on there, but I actually found a little bit more on what to do when you actually see them. And, what is kind of
ways of handling it.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you. Yeah. But I'll go ahead. Like I said, I'll include that in a link. I found it super fascinating, and I did appreciate that information. I'm sure maybe if I did some digging, there might be something that's done like that now still, but I did really appreciate it, and I wish that would be something that they would continue to do. I really enjoyed reading it.
Yeah, I know with the Cuban tree frogs, because we get them over here a lot.
Yes.
One of the things is you can put benzocaine, which is a numbing ointment, on its back, and then put it in a bag and in your freezer. And so the numbing makes it not feel anything, and then the freezer obviously kills it, but it's painless. But they're really bad. They eat all of our tree frogs. They're very, very,
Yeah,
very
they
bad.
eat our green
Yeah.
tree frogs, and a lot of other things. And they're
And they're
huge.
really
I don't know if
gross.
anyone
I
has
like
ever seen
frogs,
one.
but those are gross.
Very gross. Frogs are cute. I like almost all frogs. I even think most toads are relatively cute. I'm never gonna pick up a toad if I don't have to, but I think for the
They're
most
fun to
part they're
watch.
really
Doop,
cute.
doop, doop.
Yeah, they look little. Yeah,
I can share my
like
Cuban
human
tree
frogs.
frog picture of when I came into the bathroom at like 10:30 at night, and there was one just sitting on the rail, and it was
Gosh, yes.
massive.
Yes, please do. Or I feel like when we were kids, we would be up late doing homework or working in that project, and then where we grew up, they were very popular. But they're so big, and they would turn around and jump on the windows. And they'd make like this loud thumping noise, and they would absolutely scare the
It's like
crap out
completely
of
dark,
us.
and it sounds like somebody just like slammed their hand into the window.
Yeah, you were like up until like midnight working on something, and then that just happens. And you're like, I think I forgot how to breathe a little. Alrighty, so this concludes this week's episode talking about one out of the 360 bird species in the Everglades. Thank you so much for listening. And Kaylee, do you have anything you want to go ahead and add?
I don't think so. Like, follow, subscribe. If you learned something today, leave us a review, share with a friend. We're so grateful for everyone that's part of the community that is listening and following along. If you guys have any suggestions or anything that you'd like to learn more about, you can email us at ourfloridapodcast@gmail.com and send us your suggestions. Or maybe you've seen a purple gallinule. We'd love to see your
Yes,
pictures.
please, if you guys have seen these birds or if you are unsure, definitely go ahead and share these pictures with us. We'd love to see them. Thank you guys so much for listening. We really
Thanks
appreciate
for coming along our ride as we become bird enthusiasts slowly.